Well, welcome to the 5th annual Poetry Bash, led by Howard Feigenbaum, the Diamond Valley Writers Guild Poet Laureate. And so, looking forward to it. It's been one of my favorite meetings each year. To start with today, I do have a quick announcement. I believe we have some positions open that we'll be voting for in November. Sandy, if you will unmute yourself and tell us what positions they are.
Okay. Per the bylaws, I need to read this. The Guild has a board of directors consisting of 5 people. The board meets 5 times a year in Hemet. All of the directors serve for a 2-year term. Each October, an election is held for the position whose terms are ending. This October, we will elect 3 directors: vice president, treasurer, and member at large. If the idea of serving on the board interests you, you may nominate yourself or someone else at the October meeting. You will have 3 minutes to let us know why you're running. If only one candidate is nominated, the vote will be by voice. If 2 or more are nominated, we normally vote by paper ballot. And Jim, that may have to change if we're still meeting on Zoom, because I don't know how we'd do a paper ballot. But we could discuss that at the board meeting in September. Election results will be announced at that meeting to be determined.
Okay, so the 3 positions are, Sandy?
President, vice president, treasurer, and member at large.
Oh, hold it, missed that. Vice president, treasurer,
and member at large.
And member at large.
No, Lynn says no.
No,
Jolynn was just elected treasurer. This is her first year.
So then we'd only have 2.
Okay. Right. Right.
Okay.
Oh no, what about his secretary? That's the one that's missing, that's on the list, Sandy, Dennis. I believe. Dennis was appointed, wasn't that right, Lynn? He was appointed before I came on. Yes, and his is the one that's not treasurer, but secretary.
Usually the president and the treasurer are elected in the same year, and then the other 3
Jolene and I were both, and so it's the secretary, vice president, member at large.
Right.
Okay. All right. So if any of you are interested in those, they're the board meetings, as Sandy said, they're 6 times a year, and there's really not a whole lot of work involved. Joe probably has more work than any of us doing being treasurer. Secretary requires a little work, but it's not much. And I wouldn't take it, but that's beside the point. At any rate, what I'm saying is that if anyone's interested, please, we always need people who are willing to serve on the board. And if you have an interest in it, please put your name in. That'll be for November, so you have we made the announcement now, so you have a little time to think about it. Okay, let's go with our standard. Is there anybody who has had anything published or started anything, finished anything since last time? Ellen, how's your book doing?
It's doing well. I'm getting really great reviews. And thank you to any of you who have written reviews for me. And if any of you haven't, I'd love it if you would. One cool thing that we did, Lynn Spreen interviewed me and posted it on her website. I'm going to be posting it on my website. And maybe we could put it on the Diamond Valley Writers Guild site as well.
Good, good. Anybody else have anything? No? Oh, well, wait, yes, I have Gary down here, yes. Gary, you're muted. You have to unmute yourself. Oops. No, really. Okay, in the meantime, I think Dan raised his hand. We'll go to Dan.
Yeah, it's slow progress, but it's accelerating. I've got a couple of, I guess you could call them alpha readers, and I'm sending them my chapters one by one that have already been critiqued and changed accordingly. And I'm on chapter 12 now of probably about 48 to 50. So somewhere in there. So anybody else who would like to read my novel Pipeline, it's an action thriller with a touch of sci-fi in it. Send me a little chat note here where I can send it to, and I'll send you a chapter.
Okay. Gary, are you back? You're,
Jerry,
I'm sorry, Jerry, you're back. Tell me, you had your hand up.
I did. I had a poem published in Straight Jackets in the spring issue and in the summer issue. I had 2 poems published, so that was a boost for me.
All right. Well, great. It's terrific. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm listening.
Okay.
I feel like I'm in a Senate investigation committee for
yes.
too many morons at the state.
Yes, we're about to convict you of writing poetry.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything that you've? Yes, Lynn.
I wanted to say that, well, I am cranking along, writing a short story a week roughly, which I'm really proud about because it's been a long drought for me, not being able to write. But I found something of interest to anyone who feels like they would like to freelance. Karen Robertson did this wonderful presentation a couple months ago about,
right,
how to make money, finding markets, to sell your work, to write, write for magazines and different things. Anyway, I found a free ebook and I posted it on the Diamond Valley Writers Guild Facebook page, which you can go to facebook.com and just type in Diamond Valley Writers Guild and it'll find it for you. But it's the most current post. It's called 101 Answers for New Freelance Writers. And I am imagining that it would be packed full of information about, to follow up on what Karen was telling us. So if you'd actually like to make a few bucks and you'd like to get started doing freelancing, everybody's looking for material right now. So go to the Guild's Facebook page and look for that link to the free ebook. That's my message.
Okay, great. Kara, you had something.
I do. I wanted to share that I've been working on my first book, which is my memoir, for years. And I met Jolynn and she invited me to this group. And during COVID and this whole thing, I finished it. So I'm done. So this is my first attempt writing a book. But
Right.
I'm learning super quick. I just want to share. I'm learning that rewriting is a whole nother thing and I'm completely lost in the process. So if there's a group or anything I could join to help me wade through what I've written, I'd appreciate any pointers. And so that's where I'm at.
Okay, great.
It's overwhelming, very overwhelming.
Well, you know what? When I used to teach writing, my whole thing, I would always tell my students one thing, and that is there is no art in writing. It doesn't exist. All art comes in the rewrite. That it's not the first draft there's the art exists in. It's not even in the second, most likely. It's probably about the 4th or 5th draft of your material where it really shapes up, and that's when art really, when writing becomes art, that's when it does. But it's certainly not that first draft, and even though you've corrected and everything too, I don't care how many times you've corrected it. Once it's even printed, you'll look at sentences and cringe, and say, "How could I have written that?" I still do that. I go back in my first couple of books, especially when I really didn't know much about writing, and I look at it and say, God, how did they buy that? I mean, but that's great, and that's terrific that you're doing it, but you're right. The next big step is to rewrite it. So maybe I can find you a group to join or something.
Okay, one other quick thing too is I was planning on keeping everyone's original names, at least their first name. I didn't have to say their last name, but that was my plan. And I'm learning that that might not be a good plan, but I still, that's where my heart is. I feel like it's a true story, so I want to keep the names the same. And I'm not writing anything. I'm trying to be very honoring and respectful of the people in it. So I don't know, but that's another concern, a legal concern, I guess. So.
Okay. And I can't help you there.
Okay. Okay.
But
One of the things you can do is when the novel is done, you can contact the people, let them know that their name is in it, and send them the sections that has their name in it, and then just get their approval, kind of, is this okay with you that your name is in here? And if it's not, that's okay, and you change the name. And that way, if you get a little written answer from them, you shouldn't have any issues and shouldn't have to get into hopefully you wouldn't have to get into any kind of legal stuff, and you've gotten their permission.
of course, it doesn't sound like you're writing Peyton Place, so where she got sued by various people in the town. But yeah, it's always good to know. All right, anybody else have anything? All right, well, in that case, then I'm going to go to our next line of business. That's Cheryl for Straight Jackets. Oh, Cheryl, where are you?
Yeah, I'm there. I am just unclicking. Okay.
Okay.
Well, we have some early bird submissions for the next magazine, which is awesome. Thank you, Karen. I think you're the earliest we've ever had. So
Good.
yeah, that's great. Hi, Howard. And okay, and I think the big thing is, and Greg, I'm going to be calling on you here in a second. Greg Porterfield came forward with a fantastic idea, and that is to turn Straight Jackets, all our issues into a book, whether we call it the best of or we don't know yet. The editors are going to be going over. He's got a great proposal. There's no cost to this. The authors won't be making any money. Greg has experience in the formatting, and the parts he's putting together look awesome. Any profits that we make off of Amazon, I think you're saying to publish through Amazon, right, Greg? Okay. And any profits would go to allay the costs of Squarespace for the magazine. And if we just start booming right along, then it can go to the coffers of the Writers Guild, to maybe for speakers and things like that. If authors want some issues, Greg, I'm going to call on you for this one. You said that if authors wanted copies, they should order in because postage is cheaper, and I don't know the ins and outs of that. Can you explain it? Unmute yourself. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of you probably have already done some self-publishing and through KDP, and your books are appearing on Amazon. One of the things that is really cool about the old CreateSpace KDP format and all is that the author of a book can order what are called author copies at cost from Amazon. So you don't have the retail markup of when it's actually on the Amazon site. So a book that might go for the author put a $12.95 price on it. The actual author's cost would be about $4 or $5. And this is what I do with some of the books that I've done. Instead of ordering one book and paying the shipping for one book, which is always about $5, I usually order about a dozen copies, and the shipping still is only about $5. So it makes it where anyone who would have their article or their story in this book, hard copy book, could buy one of the author's copies at the cost that is charged to the author. And so that way it'd just be, $5 or $6 for one of these books. And the way that I'm kind of laying it out right now, it's looking like about a 200-page book, which is pretty good. It'll all be black and white on the interior pages because that's the cheapest way to print this stuff. If you put even one color picture on a 200-page book, you're paying full color for every single page in that publication. So it's just a cheap, easy way of getting Straight Jackets magazine, which I don't think there are very many critique groups or writers groups that have something as significant as an online magazine available to them. We're pretty lucky that some crazy group of fools started this thing a few years ago. And there's actually some pretty good stuff in Straight Jackets. I hope everybody takes a few minutes to look back and see what some of your fellow writers have put together over the last 4 years of Straight Jackets magazines. What I'm kind of proposing is that we wrap up all 4 years through 2020, where all the stories in Straight Jackets would be in this hardbound or this hard printed copy of a magazine, except now it'd be in a book form. And it'd be the kind of thing that if the Writers Guild has a fundraiser or something down in Temecula at a table, instead of individual writers hawking their wares, there would be a best of Straight Jackets that would be available where people could buy it. It would be available for sale at a retail price through Amazon, and any profits would go back into the Guild and into Straight Jackets.
Hey, excellent. I would like to give a quick history lesson. You wouldn't know this, Greg, but originally Straight Jackets started in 2008, and it grew out of Ray Straight's group. We made a suggestion. We started printing Straight Jackets in 2008, around 2000, and whenever the Guild formed. By that time, we had suspended operations on it for about 1.5 years, and we picked it up again with the Guild. So there's actually, before the Guild picked it up, there's that whole section before that also had tremendous amount. Lynn was in the first issue. So was Mary Jane, and a few other people who are with us now were in that first issue so many years ago. But yeah, so it goes back even more than the 4 years.
Now don't scare me, Jim. Don't scare me.
Yeah, but it's not online. I mean, I have individual stories that people wrote, but those are not online anymore. They're long gone. But I think the idea of doing the last 4 years is terrific. I really love the idea myself, just on a personal level. Cheryl, anything else?
Well, yeah, we'll be polling, we'll be sending out an email to the members in case for some reason or another, as Greg mentioned, that somebody does not want their story included. I don't know if because of some publication issue that they're putting it somewhere else and they don't want it included or whatever. I don't know the ins and outs of that part, but we will be submitting, as we go along here, sending out an email to ask everybody permission to go ahead and include their stories.
Okay.
Just so we don't trounce on something.
All right.
Can I just add one little piece? We won't be using the photographs from the magazine, the pictures that go along with the stories. It'll just be the stories.
Okay, great. Anything else on that? Well, in that case, let's move on to Sandy and her writing tip.
Okay. In this COVID time, I've been doing a lot of reading, and one of the books I read a couple of weeks ago was Fire Up Your Fiction, An Editor's Guide to Writing Compelling Stories by Jody Renner. And the chapter on stimulus and response phrasing for immediacy and power struck me as it's stuff that we know logically, but sometimes doesn't always get to the paper, as we've seen in critique groups and even some published books. When writing fiction, she says, It's usually best to show actions and events in chronological order and to describe the cause first, then the effect. Something happens, then the character reacts to it, not the other way around. So I've taken some examples. David yelled out in pain when the door slammed on his fingers. It really should be some version of this. The door slammed on David's fingers and he yelled out in pain, so that the action is there and the reaction is second. You also need to describe, she says, physically sequential actions in the order they occurred. Instead of Jake walked the 500 yards over to the police station and left his car in front of the restaurant. You'd want to say some version of Jake left his car in front of the restaurant and walked the 500 yards over to the police station. If you don't write the actions in the order they occurred, it causes confusion for the reader. And the other one, and we talk about this in critique groups all the time, using the ing verbs, ing. Be careful using those because they imply simultaneous action where there is none. So instead of she slammed the car door running up the sidewalk, you would write you'd rewrite actually, she slammed the car door, then ran up the sidewalk. Or he took out his keys starting the car. No, he took out his keys and started the car. In these examples of the ing verbs, they imply actions occurred one after the other, which is impossible. She cannot run up the sidewalk as she's slamming the door, and he can't start the car while he's taking out his keys. So the moral of the story is, when showing actions and reactions in your fiction, pay attention to the syntax to create well-formed sentences that follow logic. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Sandy. Another great tip. All right. Now it is time for Howard, the reigning poet laureate of the Diamond Valley Writers Guild. And Howard, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Jim. It's wonderful to be here, be with all of you. And you're a good-looking crowd. I notice everyone is dressed from the waist up, which is very encouraging. Don't make any sudden moves if you're not. I just want to mention that if you got this promotional ad and you saw my name spelled as Geigenbaum.
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
Well, you've got fat little fingers, Jim. The F and the G are pretty close.
Yes.
And but the name is actually Feigenbaum, easy to spell. It's just like Eigenbaum, but with an F in front of it. So there we are.
I corrected it on today's, if you noticed, Howard.
Yeah, I looked on mine. I didn't see it change.
I did correct.
And you can remember the name easily. You hear the tune at Christmas time. Oh, Feigenbaum, oh, Feigenbaum. You know that one. Okay. Usually in the years past, I like to start with some music, but on this medium, it's very hard. Music doesn't come through well. So what I'd like us to do is just sing a little song together at low volume, so we don't have any feedback or, awkward sounds. So let's just warm up a little bit. If you could unmute everyone, Jim, or unmute yourself.
Okay, let's see. Unmute all. I'm sure I can, but how? No.
Okay, tell.
Why don't we make unmuting voluntary?
Yeah, you have to you have to unmute yourself. There you go.
I see Cheryl waving her hands.
No, she doesn't want to unmute. But what I like to do, and I learned this on YouTube in the time I have from this virus, is to warm up your voice. Say these two syllables: goo 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 goo. So everybody, let's do a little goo goo just to warm our voice. Ready? Goo, 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 goo. Okay, that's enough.
Google.
That's enough. Okay. Last year we did Land of a Thousand Dances, and it was a great tune. Everybody kind of rocked a little bit to it. So just to get ourselves in tune, I'd like to do the na-na part. Everybody knows this part. Ready? Na 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 na. Let me hear you now. Na 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 na. Okay, that's enough. Okay, mute them all, Jim.
Mute all is
You sounded great. Thank you.
okay. Now all is muted, including you, Howard. Howard, unmute yourself.
Okay. Well, wonderful. For those of you who don't know me, and I think there are many of you here, let me just explain a little bit about who I am. You're probably asking yourself, how does a guy like that get to lead a group on poetry on the Diamond Valley Writers Guild monthly meeting? And it's quite simple. A little bit about me, my history. I was born at a very early age to people who I didn't know. I knew right away that life had risk, and it's been true for my whole life so far. I grew up in a small town in the Catskill Mountains. The name of the town was Jeffersonville. And in the 7th grade, everybody has to learn Revolutionary War history. It's part of the New York cultural milieu. So in the 7th grade, I studied this Revolutionary War history, and I learned about Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys, who staved off an attack from the British, and they were in Vermont. They staved off an attack from the British coming down through Canada, and they were heroes, and it was wonderful. So I never wrote a poem before, but I wrote a poem called Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys. And I turned it into my teacher, Mrs. von Bergen. And she was so thrilled that a 7th grade boy would write a poem, and it made sense. And she had them publish it in the school newspaper. Oh, when I saw that, I knew I was famous. This was really great. I was a poet and I was famous. And everybody in Jeffersonville knew who I was. That changed my life. That set me on a new path. And this is the reason I'm dressed like this today, because I'm a poet and I know it. And when I lived in Jeffersonville, when I was in the 7th grade, after that seminal event, I walked into town and I was wearing black Bermuda shorts with red knee socks, a Hawaiian shirt, and a fluorescent fisherman's hat that had shells sewn on to it by my grandmother. And I went to the drugstore and I sat at the counter. I was the king. It was wonderful. So I realized at that point, you have to think of yourself as an artist, and you have to dress the part. So that's a lesson for you. Okay, and then I went on to write for the high school newspaper. We moved to Los Angeles, and I won several journalism contests, and I was the feature editor of the newspaper. And that was the year I read Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travels, if you remember that from English class. And I learned about satire. So when I was the feature editor, I made fun of all the people in the administration, and they liked it. And they knew that I had a perfect defense. I said, this is satire. You've read Jonathan Swift, haven't you? And they couldn't deny it. So that was a learning point. And then after I went to UCLA, after that I went to work, and I ended up as being a broker dealer in the financial industry. And I've done that for almost 40 years now. And the only reason I mention that is that I'm running for city treasurer in Hemet. So if anybody here votes in Hemet, look for me on the ballot. Give me the big check. And I do want to say hello to my sister, Marcia. She's visiting us from Poolsbo, Washington. And she's in the bottom square here on page 1, I think. So here's a kiss for you, Marcia. Mwah. Okay. And then I joined I moved here, when I retired, I moved here to Four Seasons. I joined a writing group. It was run by Ray Strait. It was at the bar that he ran. And it was quite illuminating. And I was bringing poetry to the group. Now, everybody else in the group, they were writers. They were writing novels and they wrote chapters, but I didn't. I brought 1 or 2 little poems. Do you know how long it takes to read and get critiqued on 1 or 2 little poems? Less than 5 minutes. 3 minutes would be a stretch. And that's where I found out another important point, that poetry is perfect. After I read the poems, they looked around, they said, sounds good, I like it. And you know what I realized? They couldn't say anything. It's your thought. How can you say, don't think that? You think a better thought that might interest me more. No, that was my thought. They had to listen to whatever that was, and there was no way of critiquing it because it was perfect, that you had to accept however it is. And we know in poetry, everybody writes what they think or how they feel. You can't say you don't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way. No, it's a poem. You have a perfect alibi for whatever that is. So I always want to bring that out, that poetry is perfect. And then I dropped out of the group because of that very thing. I had to listen for 3 hours to other people's chapters, and they only listened to me for 5 minutes. So after some time away from the group, Jim had called me up and said, "We miss you, Howard. Can you come back?" So I said, "Okay, I'll come back, but I'm going to write a novel, so you'll have to listen to my chapter." And that's what I did. And I went on to write a trilogy and action adventure novels. And now I'm on my a new trilogy that I've started. So that's a little short story about who I am. And I like to have fun with this, so we'll go ahead and start. I'll do about 10 or 15 minutes here of talking about poetry. And what I'd like to bring out in this particular session is how we made the transition from Old English poetry to modern poetry. And it took some time to happen, but now we have the freedom to write any darn thing we want, any way we want it. And it's all considered poetry. And it wasn't always that way. And also, I'd like to also remember people who have died and who contributed something to literature and especially to poetry. And this first one is Gordon Lightfoot. And I have to thank Lynette Tucker for this because there was a notice that Gordon Lightfoot had died. And I was saddened by that. He's a great singer. And this is what really got me. Alec Baldwin said, "Well, Gordon Lightfoot sings poetry." And I said, "Well, how astute of Alec to notice that." And so I said, I'm good. I found out that Gordon Lightfoot didn't really die. It was a hoax and he's still alive. But since there was notice of his death, I'm going to include him in our in memoriam right now. So at some point in the future, if he goes, we've already covered it. So he'll be taken care of. And one of the songs that Gordon is famous for is The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And I'd like to read the first 2 stanzas and then the last one. The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitche Gumee. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. With a load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty, that good ship and crew was a bone to be chewed when the gales of November came early. The ship was the pride of the American side, coming back from some mill in Wisconsin. As the big freighters go, it was bigger than most, with a crew and good captain well seasoned. Concluding some terms with a couple of steel firms when they left fully loaded for Cleveland. Then later that night, when the ship's bell rang, could it be the north wind they'd been feeling? Now the last verse, in a rustic old hall in Detroit, they prayed in the Maritime Sailors Cathedral. The church bell chimed till it rang 29 times for each man on the Edmund Fitzgerald. The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they called Gitchigumi. Superior, they said, never gives up her dead when the gales of November come early. And I think Alec Baldwin was right. That is great poetry from a singer. And the other person I want to recognize and remember, he died March 15th, 2019, was an American poet who wrote more than 50 books of poetry and prose and produced many works in translation. During the 1960s anti-war movement, William Stanley Merwin's unique craft was thematically characterized by indirect, unpunctuated narration. In the 1980s and 1990s, his writing influence derived from an interest in Buddhist philosophy and deep ecology. Residing in a rural part of Maui, Hawaii, he wrote prolifically and was dedicated to the restoration of the island's rainforests. Merwin received many honors, including the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 1971 and 2009, the National Book Award for Poetry in 2005, and the Tanning Prize, one of the highest honors bestowed by the Academy of American Poets, as well as the Golden Wreath of the Struga Poetry Evenings. In 2010, the Library of Congress named him the 17th United States Poet Laureate. So that's quite nice. And you can tell from his long list of books that he probably never worked a day in his life. He probably inherited money and could just write books of poetry, which we all know never pays. Nobody buys poetry. It's never on the bestseller list. And here's a sample of his work. It's from On the Subject of Poetry. It's called On the Subject of Poetry, and it's from a work called The Dancing Bears. I do not understand the world, Father. By the mill pond at the end of the garden, there is a man who slouches listening to the wheel revolving in the stream. Only there is no wheel there to revolve. He sits in the end of March, but he sits also in the end of the garden. His hands are in his pockets. It is not expectation on which he is intent, nor yesterday to which he listens. It is a wheel turning. When I speak, Father, it is the world that I must mention. He does not move his feet, nor so much as raise his head, for fear he should disturb the sound he hears, like a pain without a cry, where he listens. I do not think I am fond, Father, of the way in which always before he listens, he prepares himself by listening. It is unequal, Father, like the reason for which the wheel turns, though there is no wheel. I speak of him, Father, because he is there with his hands in his pockets, in the end of the garden, listening to the turning wheel that is not there, but it is the world, Father, that I do not understand. So here we have a pretty deep poem. So you have to have a drink or two before you read this. Anyway, I never heard of him before, and he was the Poet Laureate of the United States, but he had an interesting take. Now we'll turn to William Blake. And William Blake was a seminal poet because he broke away from the way it used to be and decided to go at a new path. And what he did for a living, he was an engraver, and he also liked to paint. He was an artist, but he had to work for a living, and nobody recognized his poetry until after he died, which is so common with artists. And this is a poem that he wrote that a lot of us were forced to look at in 8th grade. And I'll just read the first stanza. It's called The Tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? And why is Blake called a precursor of Romanticism? For this, perhaps he has been rightly called the precursor. Speaking historically, Romanticism has begun with Blake, for he is the first time broke away from the literary tradition and poetic diction of the so-called Augustan age. The Romantics believed in the freedom of art in their creations. And it says Romantics were attracted to rebellion and revolution, especially concerned with human rights, individualism, freedom from oppression. Blake rebelled against England's church. Blake is considered a Romantic writer because of the presence of the characteristics of Romantic literature found in his writings. Now, the connection I have to William Blake comes from Chris Christopherson. Would you believe? Chris Christopherson, that great singer, and you know him from Me and Bobby McGee. You know, Anyway, you know how that goes. And Sunday Morning Coming Down. Well, Chris Christopherson was a Rhodes Scholar, and he went to Oxford, and he got a master's degree in English literature. And who did he study? William Blake. And this is what Chris says. Chris Christopherson discovered Blake while a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford, even naming his 8th child after the poet in 1994. When asked about the effect of Blake on his life, Christopherson told Andrew Denton in a 2005 interview, he was such a passionate artist, and he believed that it was his duty because God made him that way to be a creative poet. He said, if he who was organized by the divine for spiritual communion refuse and bury his talent in the earth, even though he should want natural bread, sorrow and desperation will pursue him throughout life, and after death, shame and confusion are faced to eternity. So there's a lesson for you, poets. If you don't use your natural abilities and talents, you will be punished for eternity. And something to keep in mind. And Christopherson says, so for a young guy who wanted to be an artist, it was perfect inspiration. Well, I don't know about that. Someone has to hold the whip of eternity and punishing me for that length of time over me. It's a little hard to perform. So, but I now want to move on to a man named William S. Burroughs, who wrote a book called Naked Lunch. And this is the modernism we start to know in our own lives. And he says, there is only one thing a writer can write about, what is in front of his senses at the moment of writing. I am a recording instrument. I do not presume to impose story, plot, continuity. Insofar as I succeed in direct recording of certain areas of psychic process, I may have limited function. I am not an entertainer. So it's an interesting take. I would say to William Burroughs, how wrong you are. We are all entertainers. Even poets are entertainers because what we read in poetry is entertaining in some degree, even if it's sad. We're interested to know about it. And then the next poet in this progression in the modern era is Ezra Pound. He was an expatriate American poet and critic, a major figure in the early modernist poetry movement, and he was a fascist sympathizer. His contribution to poetry began with his development of Imagism, a movement derived from classical Chinese and Japanese poetry, stressing clarity, precision, and concision. His work is known for its clarity, precision, and vibrant, clear images. He and other imagists chose to disregard form and the flowery language of the Victorian period, opting instead for a new style, which in some cases said what needed to be said with as few words as possible. And I know among us now we have a few haiku writers. Valerie Eitzen writes haiku, and I would say, she's in that mold of succinct poetry, and we'll hear from her in a little while. And this is one of I've got two of Ezra Pound's poems. One of them is pretty short. It's called In a Station of the Metro. The apparition of these faces in the crowd pedals on a wet black bough. That's it. That's the poem. And he wanted you to see that image in his mind. This other one is called A Pact. I make a pact with you, Walt Whitman. I have detested you long enough. I come to you as a grown child who has had a pig-headed father. I am old enough now to make friends. It was you that broke the new wood. Now is a time for carving. We have one sap and one root. Let there be commerce between us. So even though he dislikes Whitman, he knows that where he is has come in some way from Whitman. Kind of an interesting take. And this guy actually turned out to be crazy, and they put him in an insane asylum for many years. And other poets and writers lobbied to get him released from the sanitarium. So bear in mind that we have camaraderie among us. If any of us get into the sanitarium, we'll lobby for you. Oh, and he had some advice, and I thought this was worth including. Good writers are those who keep the language efficient. That is to say, keep it accurate, keep it clear. And now Emily Dickinson, and she was some crazy lady. And this is a poem that, if you haven't heard it before, is really terrific in its own way. It's called, I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died. I heard a fly buzz when I died. The stillness in the room was like the stillness in the air between the heaves of storm. The eyes around had wrung them dry, and breaths were gathering firm for that last onset when the king be witnessed in the room. It willed my keepsakes signed away, what portion of me be assignable, and then it was there interposed a fly with blue, uncertain, stumbling buzz between the light and me, and then the windows failed, and then I could not see to see. I like that. I don't know why. And she has a lot of dashes. That's why I paused. And another poet liked this. Emily Dickinson was his favorite poet, and he loved the dashes, and he loved this poem. And his name was Allen Ginsberg, who was one crazy son of a gun. And he was part of the Beat generation. And you're all familiar with that. And I kind of like dressed today in homage to the Beat generation. These were guys who decided to break away from it all, let it all hang out. They didn't care. They said whatever they want. You could like it or not. And they would say, screw you. And that's a poet. And Ginsberg's principal work, Howl, is well known for its opening line. I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked. And Howl was considered scandalous at the time of its publication because of the rawness of its language. Shortly after its 1956 publication by San Francisco City Lights bookstore, it was banned for obscenity. The ban became a cause célèbre among defenders of the First Amendment and was later lifted after Judge Clayton W. Horn declared the poem to possess redeeming artistic value. Ginsberg and Schick Morau, the City Lights manager who was jailed for selling Howl, became lifelong friends. So he was a dirty poet, but he liked it. That's how he felt. He said it. Other people may not have liked it. I'd like to look at him. I remember seeing pictures of him, and he always dressed a little kinky. And this is, an excerpt from one of his poems. And he had a fixation on his mother, and this poem is about her. Or down the avenue to the south, too, as I walk toward the Lower East Side, where you walked 50 years ago, little girl, from Russia, eating the first poisonous tomatoes of America, frightened on the dock, then struggling in the crowds of Orchard Street toward what? Toward Newark, toward candy store, first homemade sodas of the century, hand-churned ice cream in back room on musty brown floorboards. Toward education, marriage, nervous breakdown, operation, teaching school, and learning to be mad in a dream. What is this life? So his mother actually was a communist and also crazy. And she took him to the Communist Party meetings, and he learned to be a communist. And I guess to some extent, he also learned to be crazy. So you work with what you have, and that's what he did. And I think I mentioned earlier that he loved Emily Dickinson's poetry. He especially liked I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died. And he also wrote a poem called Kaddish, which is the Jewish prayer for the dead. And what I found, it said, and since Ginsberg and Dickinson were all about being rebels, you can understand why they'd be into exploring possibilities of the dash. And then two more left. William Carlos Williams, he was an imagist and also in the vein of Ezra Pound. And this 1934 poem, it's called This Is Just to Say, draws on a concept of modern art, the ready-made. Like Marcel Duchamp, who famously exhibited a urinal in an art gallery in 1917, Williams seems to make art of the artless, out of the found or ephemeral. The poem reads like a note left on a kitchen table, but its plain language and mundane occasion belie its wit. A shrewd observer of domestic life in poems, Williams here captures the tension between individual desire and family togetherness. And this is the poem. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. That is the poem. Simple and direct. He ate the plums. What a guy. And he lived to write about it. And this is something I learned in college at UCLA. I took a class in art appreciation. And they showed me this Dada movement. They showed me slides of the urinal that was in the Museum of Art. And that was now considered art. And I thought to myself, wow, this is different. Why not? This could be art. Who am I to say? And that's what it's about in poetry too. When Ezra Pound wrote his thing, when Ginsberg wrote his, and now when William Carlos Williams writes that he ate the plums, it's all poetry. It's great literature. And last but not least is a guy, little known, Todd Temkin, son of a wealthy industrialist, MFA in poetry at the University of Minnesota, and resident of Valparaiso, Chile. He admired William Carlos Williams, and that's why I include him. And as a son of a wealthy industrialist, he didn't have to really work for a living, so he could spend his time writing poetry. And this is his poem. It's called The Capital of Nothing. My father was too young to fight in the Great War. He received experimental contact lenses instead. Huge gray discs the size of a nickel, stolid convexities, reeking of self-sacrifice, wholesomeness, and the national trust. He practiced his principles poring over Texaco street maps that guided him through the 70s, exploring every small foundry in a five-state world defined by oceans named Rhinelander, Moline, Sandusky, and Kalamazoo. 5 states were big enough for me then. The smells of zinc, shavings, brass alloys, and burned silica sand, and the ABC of a syllogism purporting a hierarchy of logic designed to support gray days and black winter afternoons. In 1971, my parents studied ballroom dancing on the Pacific Princess, and I have been dodging my mother at weddings and bar mitzvahs ever since. pummeling my soul at 13 with cheap champagne and Manischewitz sucked down in shot-like gulps. I was the last one in my family to suffer from myopia and the first to read of the exploits of Copernicus as explained in the 1964 World Book Encyclopedia, my Old Testament and Savior. I was compiling a list of famous Poles, but quit upon pondering the sweetness of my grandmother's lips, captured in a family portrait, snapped somewhere near Krakow in the 1920s. I have spent 25 years recapitulating the glory of my greatest achievement, having memorized at age 7 every state capital and the population of the world's great metropolitan areas, Shanghai, Sao Paulo, Calcutta, Tokyo, Peking. Little does it serve me now, except to emphasize that although Atlanta, Phoenix, and San Antonio have doubled in size, Milwaukee has stayed the same, defeating philosophers as great as Blake and Whitman, who believed that life as it is change, revitalizing energy, whirled into a multiplicity of forms. Milwaukee is what I imagine Poland to be, constant and stoic, underwhelming and cold. My life could be summed up the day the city paved over my favorite creek. It's about good drainage and waste removal, little lives that dare to step out of their silent shelter into the light. It's about finding a snow plowing service that doubles as a landscaper in the summer. It's about cheering silently for the doe who lunches on my mother's tulips. My father taught me we were the capital of beer and outboard engines. He said, Harley Davidson, now that's a motorcycle. I memorized the width of the world's largest four-faced clock, calculated the percentage of the world's fresh water contained in Lake Michigan. At 16, Schlitz moved to Detroit, and I began the slow pilgrimage toward knowing that Copernicus was right. It is better to be starry-eyed and insignificant, a dot in the infinite field, the capital of nothing, than to cling tenaciously to our own delusions, whose deaths will go unnoticed by the stars. My grandmother was no more beautiful than yours. Dance. A foundry is as good as a place as any to measure the state of the universe. The railroad tracks of dreams, the silent, invisible symphony of the sky. Now, I don't know what you think of the poem. It really reads more like prose to me. It's really a story of his life, but does have poetic meter in it. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But here's a guy who grew up rich, had nothing to do but think about the world and write poetry, and had a certain amount of disdain for how things happened in the lives of people and the mundane aspects of life. So there you have it. That's what we have now in modern poetry. Now it's up to us to carry the ball forward. So let's carry it right now. We'll go to our poets, our time, and we'll hear what's on the mind of the people who really do count, the great poets of Riverside County. And I have on the list here Judy Murray, who I didn't see here. If you're here, Judy, raise your hand. Valerie Eitzen, who I see, Daniel Kuttner, Karen Robertson, John Hoddy, who I don't see, Dixie, Jean Miller, who I don't see, Jim Hitt, Armando Zuniga. Is he here, Jim? Don't see him. Beverly Splitgerber, we welcome her, and she's new to the group. Hi, Beverly. We met her, she's from Del Webb, and apparently she's an ardent poet. Greg Porterfield, Lynette Tucker, Debbie Barney, and last but not least, Howard Feigenbaum, or Geigenbaum as you prefer. Okay, so first we'll go to Valerie. Unmute yourself, Valerie. Unplug yourself, girl.
Right. Thank you, Howard. That was very kind. My expertise is in little bitty poems because I'm a bit of an impatient person. So I can take this little scrap of paper with 3 lines on it of 17 syllables wherever I go. If I have to wait in the car, in a doctor's office, I can work on it. That is a wonderful thing. Haiku are a major form of Japanese verse, 17 syllables, 3 lines, 5, 7, and 5 syllables. And they're about nature or the seasons. So I've done a few on the 4 seasons. The first couple are on spring.
Oh, Valerie, let me
Yes.
just remind everybody that we do have a haiku exception. Because haiku poetry is so short, Valerie can read up to like 8 or 9 poems. It's only like, 24, 27 lines. And when she reads them, she likes to repeat them to give you the full impact. So I'd like her to do that here today. So go ahead, Valerie.
The advent of spring, dissolved in the azure sky, pale, transparent moon. The advent of spring, dissolved in the azure sky, pale, transparent moon. And this is a haiku using 3 of the 5 senses: smelling, seeing, and hearing. Earthy spring fragrance, leafless branches, reddish glow, woodpeckers drumming. Earthy spring fragrance, leafless branches, reddish glow, woodpeckers drumming. And for summer, end of summer, one last fat brown fig waiting, peck holes through the net. End of September, one last fat brown fig waiting, peck holes through the net. We got from Diamond Valley farmer a mortar that was made by the Kuya Indians, and the scrub jays love this when the sprinklers fill the little cup with water. Kuya mortar, scrub jay splashing in the cup, private summer bath. Kuya mortar, scrub jay splashing in the cup, private summer bath. Autumn, first fire of autumn, crickets scamper on the hearth, a sign of good luck. First fire of autumn, crickets scamper on the hearth, a sign of good luck. Also autumn, ancient gnarled oaks, acorns pattering like rain, autumn deer fodder. Ancient gnarled oaks, acorns pattering like rain, autumn deer fodder. And winter, rain-spent clouds gather, wind driven to the valley's end, rainbow chasing crows. Rain-spent clouds gather, wind driven to valley's end, rainbow chasing crows. And I'd like to read a couple of senryu, because these are not like nature. They're all about people and their foibles, and they're some of the things they do in life that kind of surprise us sometimes. I was in the beauty shop many months ago, and there was a woman crashing around in the waiting room, and I asked her what she was doing, and she said she was going to kill a giant mosquito. I said, well, I think that's a crane fly, and they don't have any mouth parts, so they're totally innocent. So here's the haiku that I came up with later. Crashing into chairs, she attacks harmless crane flies, blood, gore on the floor. Crashing into chairs, she attacks harmless crane flies, blood, gore on the floor. And this is about flies. Swatter on the wall, sticky feet tasting our food, pesky, dirty flies. Swatter on the wall, sticky feet tasting our food, pesky, dirty flies. And yesterday when the gardeners came, interrupted nap. Soon as I put the book down, noisy gardeners. Interrupted nap. Soon as I put the book down, noisy gardeners. We had a piece of horse property we sold to city folk, and we told them that the deer sometimes jumped over the fences and came in and ate the roses that were all around the house and all around the patios. And they said, oh, we'll fix that. We'll just put gates up. So I wrote this: new buyers built gates to stop deer eating roses. Silly newcomers. New buyers built gates to stop deer eating roses. Silly newcomers. Those deer would crawl under the fence, go through the fence, and jump over the fence. Gates would never stop them. Thank you, Howard.
Well, thank you, Valerie. And it's always a pleasure to hear your haiku. And I have to say, you must have a Japanese soul, because you do such a great job with that form. And it's a pleasure. Okay, next up is Daniel Kuttner. And please remember to explain what came before the writing of this of your poem, so that we have some context for it. Okay, Daniel.
Yes, sir, Howard. I love it when you're forceful. What came before? I guess you and I have something in common. I was also born at an early age. And as far as where this came from, sometimes I have pretty detailed dreams, very lifelike dreams. And this came from one where I was kind of reviewing the choice that I had in life. And I remembered enough of it to write it down when I woke up. Almost nothing will get me out of bed when I'm really sleeping, but this was in the next morning. I remembered a lot of it and wrote it, and then tweaked a little. And then our critique group had a couple of suggestions that I incorporated too, very slight ones. So that's really all I can say. I think otherwise I hope it's self-explanatory.
Okay, let's hear it.
We can live, it's called Which Choice? We can live in a world of chaos, no reason or order to guide. Fear the cold, dead, unknown, impervious, impersonal space. We can set our own mortality, let others do the same. Dog eat dog, winner gets spoils. Nice guys finish last in the race. Man at the top of life's pyramid, answering to no one at all. Death as the silent end of a life filled with worry and pain. Love is a foolish delusion based on survival and lust. No meaning, affection, or mercy. Life based on protein and chemical rain. Or we can open our minds and our hearts some. Wait and be silent a while. Then ask if someone higher is there. Hear that small voice answering, yes. Imagine mercy and purpose, predating and wiser than man. Love and supreme understanding, helping whenever it's best. Allowing us freedom to falter, but also succeed and create. To help and protect one another. It's okay to make a mistake. To have many chances at learning, wisdom and skill to achieve, while some launch arrows of hatred, others roses at us will toss. It's true, both ways have dangers and pitfalls, both offer success of a sort. One's filled with hope and love, the other no basis for either. These worlds exist together, strange, but I found it is so. Whichever we decide to live in, true bliss comes only from one.
Oh, very nice. Do you have a second poem?
I didn't bring one. I mean, there's that one I read at the group if you want me to read
Well,
that.
no, read this one again. I think it's great to have the poem read twice. Go ahead.
Okay. Which choice? We can live in a world of chaos, no reason or order to guide. Fear the cold, dead unknown, impervious, impersonal space. We can set our own morality, let others do the same. Dog eat dog, winner gets spoils. Nice guys finished last in the race. Man at the top of life's pyramid, answering to no one at all. Death as the silent end of a life filled with worry and pain. Love as a foolish delusion based on survival and lust. No meaning, affection, or mercy. Life based on protein and chemical rain. Or we can open our minds and our hearts some, wait and be silent a while, then ask if someone higher is there. Hear that small voice answering, yes. Imagine mercy and purpose predating and wiser than man. Love and supreme understanding, helping whenever it's best. Allowing us freedom to falter, but also succeed and create. To help and protect one another. It's okay to make a mistake. To have many chances at learning, wisdom and skill to achieve. While some launch arrows of hatred, others roses at us will toss. It's true, both ways have dangers and pitfalls. Both offer success of a sort. One's filled with hope and love, the other no basis for either. These worlds exist together, strange, but I found it is so. Whichever we decide to live in, true bliss comes only from one.
Oh, very nice. You're a deep guy, Dan.
Thank you.
I thought you were just a little ball of fluff. You're very deep. Okay. Karen Robertson.
That. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this poem was inspired by the pandemic. And I think because it has been the worst of times and the best of times, and you will not want to hear it twice. Okay?
Okay.
Here we go, I hope. After 30 years in one house, it's time we must deep clean. Some people do it regularly, but I had to be quarantined. Drawers, closets, shelves, and patio I have cleaned them all. Boxes and boxes I've transported, goodwill to them I haul. Oiled furniture and swept cobwebs, even dusted the top of the fans. Threw away old office supplies, paper clips, and dried out rubber bands. I'm not good at gardening, but I enjoy pruning trees. Planting flowers I detest, and frankly, so do my knees. Our fruit trees gave quite a crop. Now our tummies are bigger in size because we sampled all our work and together we made 19 pies. Hello Fresh delivered our food, meals for 3 days a week. With a freezer full of pies and wild game, the scales have begun to creak. If we ever needed something, our daughter-in-law would caper. She wouldn't take any money, so we paid her in toilet paper. We stayed away from family and friends. We really did our best. A friend exposed us to COVID-19. We were negative to the test. Thankful for the outcome, we hunkered down anew to make sure the test was right and that we safely had come through. Silver Sneakers offered classes for senior citizens like me. Yoga, lifting, and Pilates, I enjoyed a little of all three. My daughter-in-law invited me to take a class online. Tribal belly dancing, it was called. I pulled the curtains and the blinds. I need a haircut and a pedicure, but I resist those public meets. My hair looks like Raggedy Ann. My toenails are cutting the sheets. I don't know what I would have done without YouTube, Facebook, and Zoom. Friends, family, and associates were all right here in my room. My daughter had a stroke last year. Now we video chat each week. It works as her speech therapy. She can walk, she can drive, she can speak. My computer has become my friend for writing and communication. She's been ever faithful during this incarceration. Bananagrams is our competition we play each night after dinner. We keep a running score on paper, and right now, I'm the big winner. We just added cornhole, a game we play on the grass. Barry beats me every time. He can be such an obnoxious winner. Walking keeps me sane each day as I walk miles and miles. I pass many people on the trails, but I can't see their smiles. Some wear masks or cover their face, but nobody looks me in the eye. We have lost so much in this country. How long will we comply? This whole pandemic thing is crazy if you ask me, but I think I've made the most of it in a clean house that pleases me. It is my faith that keeps me strong. No joy can compare with meeting God each morning when I read his word and talk to him in prayer. Amen.
All right. Wonderful. A wonderful poem. Very nice, Karen. I think I could tell by people's reactions on the screen that everyone could relate and laughed at the right times and frowned at the other right times. Thank you so much. Okay, now we'll go to the great Dixie Amaya. Unmute yourself, Dixie. Get rid of the...
I am.
There you
we
go.
go. Hi, Howard and everybody here. Thank you so much for putting this together again, and it's so good to see everybody. A little background on this particular writing is I volunteer twice a week at a mini horse rescue sanctuary. Some of the horses that are rescued come in from auctions. Most of the time, they end up in slaughterhouses. The following is what I wrote, what I think it might be like for a horse that was saved and brought to the sanctuary. She was in horrible shape, starved, neglected, and so thin her hips stuck up in the air. She had no life in her eyes and no energy to swish the flies away. After many months of love and good food and care, she turned into a beautiful, shiny horse. I was asked by the founder, Jeannie, how I would feel if they named her Dixie. Honored, I said. I am her voice, the voice of a horse. I am in a small pen, tied to a fence. I can't even put my head down, get a drink from the dirty water. And I'm too tired to swish the flies away. There is fear all around me, screaming whinnies. I am one of many who will be sold at the auction. We have big tags on our backs. We're not horses, we're just a number. Hope is draining away when I realize the condition I'm in. Starved, dirty, over 20, expecting a foal. I am an example of neglect. Some horses will be sent to the slaughterhouse. Fear invades every part of me. I am thirsty and hungry. Humans walk by inspecting the horses. They call me a flea bag. It hurts. It eats away the last feeling of hope. I hear a human say, Jeannie from the sanctuary in California is taking several of the horses. We have room for one more. We'll take her. Take me? Where am I going? What is going to happen to me? I am so afraid. I want to run, but I can't. And I want to fight, but I don't have the strength. I am at the mercy of man. We are loaded into a trailer. The humans give us food and water and tell us we're going to be okay. After a couple days, we arrive. I am put into a pen, and humans come in with fresh hay and water. They speak kindly to me. I have room to move around. Jeannie comes in the pen and talks gentle, tells me I'm beautiful. and I can rest. Over time, I begin to gain weight. I feel better. There is always fresh water and food twice a day. I feel hopeful. I am told my name is Dixie. I like my name. Feels right. I am bathed with gentle hands and brushed. So glad to be here. A doctor examines me and tells me I'm doing well and will have my foal soon. I'm not afraid. I feel loved. It is peaceful here. I feel good enough to wander the open area. I feel alive, swishing my tail back and forth as I walk along. There is excitement in the air. My foal is going to be born soon. Everyone cares about what happens to me, to us. My little filly is born. Humans say her name is Magnolia. She will have a better chance at life. We are safe here. We are home. June 2019. I don't feel well. I'm losing weight, no energy. Jeannie and the doctor try to help me, but whatever I have is taking me down. The decision is made. The doctor arrives. The needle goes in. Then peace. It is the greatest act of love. I shall miss my little filly Magnolia. I know she's going to be okay. She's in good hands. Soon I see the sanctuary horses that have went before me, Gracie and Princess and Bo and Cami Lulu. They welcome me into the herd. Thank you, Jeannie, for rescuing me. To Linda and the angels who loved me and took good care of me. You all gave me the best time of my life. The voice, of course.
Well, thank you so much, Dixie. It's a very moving poem, very
Thank
profound and beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the great Jim Hitt. Unmute yourself.
All right, yeah, I did. All right. This is a poem about names, in a sense. When we're young, I think most of us don't like our names for one reason or another. But you'll see, it's called The Explorer. When I was 7 or 8, like most children, I hated my name. When I asked my mother the reason she chose it, she told me the story of Jason and his quest. After that, my name fueled my imagination. I envisioned myself the leader of the Argonauts, the possessor of the Golden Fleece, the hero of 1,000 faces. Those were the musings of a child. Life taught me the real meaning. As is the function of all myths, it tells us about ourselves. Most of us share a connection with that long ago hero. A part in each of us wonders what lies beyond the next rise. But most of us can't explore those faraway exotic lands, which are and probably always were the imaginary realms of storytellers. That matters little. We have access to the most important of all unexplored territory, those vast mountains and prairies and seas that make up the human heart.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Was that a recent poem?
Yes.
Oh,
just for us today.
wonderful. That is so wonderful. And you know, you're absolutely right about youngsters and what they think about their names. Now, I had a daughter who died at 1 year old. Her name was Erica. And when my son was born, 2 years later, we named him Eric after her. And when he found out that he was named after his sister who died, he didn't care for it. And he came and he said, I don't want to be called Eric anymore. I said, what do you want to be called? He said, I want to be called Nerek. So we called him Nerek for a while, but then he reverted to Eric again. So it all ended okay. But thank you so much, Jim. And next we have a newcomer, Beverly Splitgerber. And you want to introduce yourself, Beverly, and tell us about your poem. Unmute yourself. Can you unmute? Unmute.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. I just had the doorbell ring and I think it was the census counter, but I ignored it. So she's still ringing the bell.
Well, go ahead and answer. Ask her if she could come back.
Well,
we'll wait.
I could do that. Okay.
Yeah, we'll wait a minute.
All right.
In the meantime, for the moment while she's gone, Howard.
Yes.
I would like to quote another poem by William Carlos Williams.
Okay, Jim.
The Red Wheelbarrow. So much depends upon the red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater. That is the most famous of all Imagist poems, American Imagist poems by William Carlos Williams.
Give us that again.
Yeah, certainly. The red wheelbarrow. So much depends upon the red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater.
You have no idea, Jim, how true that is. I have my little red wheelbarrow that I have to use every day.
There you go. He was right on. He understood.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Beverly, are we okay now?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It just so happened right at that minute. We are, my husband and I, right now in Wisconsin. We live in the Green Bay area 6 months of the year and 6 months in Hemet. So they have the census coming around, I heard, in Hemet and also here. So here I was. So anyway, I'm glad to be able to take part in this today. And I just happened to be perusing the next door neighborhood one day, and I found Howard's message and invitation that, about this poetry reading today. So thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Oh, you're welcome to be here. And you're welcome to continue in the group. As long as we're on Zoom and when you're in Hemet, it'd be wonderful.
I would love to. I have some poems here. I write mostly about my feelings about people and or animals or events or things. So I'm going to start off with a kind of a short little thing. It's called Memories Ago. Could it be we've met before in another time and place? I feel I did once hear your voice. I think I've seen your face. Oft your eyes do seem as one with mine, as though we've shared some space in time, where crystal dreams near a garden well warmed the land and softly fell. When spring-like melodies born of a wintersome tune sprinkled sunsets toward a summerish moon, and fragrant scents of an autumn-type rose did sweeten the air. Who really knows? Could it be our hearts have cared and shared before in another place by another shore, on another land, when seashells bathed on whiter sand, under a foreign sun by another star, near a bluer sea, a place so far, in some other space, in that other time, when I saw your face, when your eyes met mine. Could it have been you? Was it really me? Perhaps, for connected souls are we.
Oh, beautiful. And all right. If you could hear the applause, that would be great. But
okay.
Do you have another?
I do. It's called Togetherness. Not only loving or sharing, nor laughing or singing, but it's being alone together and quiet, saying nothing and hearing contentment ring out in the silence, feeling secure, protected, wanted, finding satisfaction in emotions. Yet some say freedom, the way of the road, it's better, for they've had their bleak nights brightened, they've had their comforting tones, but it's gone now, and for some over forever, and they care not to return. Yet easy is forgetting when it was empty, when moments of depression united only in selfness, when comfort's only door was a pillow or a thought or a want, when touching could mean so much, thought to thought, fingertip to fingertip, brow to brow, soft to soft, tune to tune, sun to sun, star to star, universe to universe, hue to hue, me to you.
Wonderful. You're kind of romantic.
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now we'll go on to Greg Porterfield.
Okay, I've got 2 poems that I'll do, and you wanted some information about, you know, the thought process that goes into coming up with ideas for poems and that sort of thing. Well, I stumbled wearing progressive bifocals like many of us do now. You have a tendency to look down at the ground a lot more than you used to as a younger person. And so you end up finding junk on the street or on your walk or whatever. And one of the things that I stumbled on was a key on one of my walks. And so I thought, well, I wonder what's going on with that key. I wonder what's happening with it. So I ended up writing a little verse about the key. Found an old key one day, dropped along the way. Its odd shape's what caught my eye. Don't know why it lay so, lost and covered in debris. It was hiding, near impossible to see. Many a man surely passed right by this old and dirty key that I hold now in my hand. Stained, pitted, and covered with age, it surely answers many questions if I but knew to ask. So I wipe it off and brush it clean and find a tree with tiny copper apples gleaming bright in the morning light. Such a key might solve mysteries or open many special doors. I can feel it in my heart and I know it in my bones. It's a moment I remember from such a long, long time ago.
Very nice.
Now, I figure I should do a second one. And this is from a book that I did.
Could you hold it closer to the camera?
Oh.
Don't fear the rewrite. Thank you.
Yeah, don't fear the rewrite, because this is something that I think we all struggle with a little bit. You know, you write something down and then you go and you leave it set for a while and you come back to it and you figure it's a bunch of trash, so you rewrite some of it, sometimes all of it. And sometimes you end up doing that 3 or 4 times before you think you get it right, and then you get it in print and then you read it again and you think, I need to rewrite that again because it's still not right. Well, anyhow, this one is called Loss of Control. And originally I wrote this sometime before 1970, and I revised it in February of 1991. Loss of control. Someone poisoned my old lady, and I don't know who it was. She was out to party late last night and drank a lot of suds. She came home awfully early, about 3:15, called me by my best friend's name, then crawled in bed with me. Someone poisoned my old lady, and I wonder who it was. I'm really very sorry, because it looks like it was me.
Wonderful. You have such a great sense of irony and the poetic view. I like that. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to Lynette Tucker. Hello, Lynette.
Here we go. Okay,
Okay.
I have two. The first one is based on the challenge we had with the little girl and the seal. And this is called One More Fish. Standing on the pier with Papa Sammy, baiting hooks with slimy minnows. Little hands easily drop the fishy lure. Over the edge it goes. Leaning over, eager eyes looking back. Whiskers wiggle as the minnow goes down. Shiny black coat, patient posture, waiting for the next slip up. Papa Sammy pretends not to notice. Another minnow bounces and slips away, sneaking a peek to see its end. Long, hot morning, fishing done, time to swim and cool down. Not alone. New fishing partner follows along, waiting for one more minnow to drop. So this one, of course, I promised Howard that I would have two poems. So Thursday night I panicked and I wrote one. So I'm pretty happy with the way this one came out. Sometimes when I sit and write, I'm just taking dictation. The poems just come. And this one just wrote itself. It's called Three Little Kittens. 3 little kittens went to town, one white, one black, and the third one brown. Sights and sounds and wonders to see, Mary Beth, Josie, and baby sis Lee. They scrimped and saved their pennies and cents. They stopped at a shop for ladies and gents. They pressed their noses against the glass and worked up the courage through the door to pass. "May I help you?" asked a cat who greeted them. She was dressed all fancy with lace on her hem. Josie blushed and baby Lee hid behind. Mary Beth nodded, saying, "A gift to find?" "We have all kinds of presents here. May I ask what you're seeking, my little dear?" The 3 little kittens looked at one another. Then all 3 said, "A gift for mother." It must be something special for the kitty they love. A hat, a scarf, or maybe a glove. "I know just the thing you'll want to get." And she showed them a lovely china tea set. Mary Beth, Josie, and baby sis Lee cheered and clapped, for it was so pretty. They gave up their treasure to pay the fee, so proud of the surprise for their own mommy. 3 little kittens headed home from town, one white, one black, and the third one brown.
All right. Wonderful. Wonderful. What great images. Lovely poems.
For some reason, you're muted, Howard.
Debbie Barney. Unmute yourself. Yes, your turn. Okay, she's put the glasses on. She's serious. All right.
Is my audio all right?
A little higher if you can make it.
Let's see. Is that any better?
Or just sit closer to the mic.
Okay, how's that?
Good. Okay,
great. Well, the reason I ended up writing this poem, it was back in 2009. I had an email from a friend and he signed his name, and then he wrote the sentiment, "Life is like a tornado. Chaos surrounds it, making it hard to find the peaceful center." And I just felt very sad that he had that as his signature, that, you know, every time he wrote an email, that's what he said. And I thought, how can I help him? I want to like write something to uplift him, like when life is like a tornado, center yourself to find the peace. But I realized that that's not something that he would even relate to, of how do you do that? So I sat down, and that same day I wrote this poem, and it helped me because I was also not feeling very centered. And a couple of years later, about 2 years later, I got it out again, and it really transformed into a little bit of a artistic piece with the text, the format of it. So it's, I'm gonna switch my camera so you can see. All right, so what I did is I put his quote at the top of the page, and I wrote a poem called Tornadoes. And when I started out, it was just feelings of chaos, and then the kind of the answers from spirit that would come to me as I wrote. So that's what this is formatted like. And so the first stanzas are indented in different ways, and the ones where the spirit answers are pretty orderly looking. And then at the end, I put the words together so that it looks like a tornado centering in the eye of the storm.
Cool.
All right. So here we go. I hope that as I read this, that somebody might find a little bit of peace in the message, because it's the reason I chose that for now is because as everyone's feeling, it's pretty stormy. Life is pretty stormy right now, and it's like, okay, this is the one that I really felt I wanted to read today. When chaos swirls around me and I feel my life's at stake, how do I go to the eye of the storm and calm from chaos make? When storms are in your head, don't stay there. The heart is a safer place. But caught in the flying debris, hurt and bruised from the blows, it's hard to find that peaceful center unless you ask the one who knows. Father, is that you? Where is peace to be found in this swirling, twirling, chaotic existence on earth? Within the stillness of your heart, there is no mortal care. Where is the door? Who has the key? Go to a quiet place, away from the noise. Open your heart to me. Father in heaven, show me the way. I need your help. I've gone astray. Self-worth is low. There's no hope today. When storms are in my head and chaos in my life, when fear and dread surround me, it's hard finding a way out of all this strife. I heard you know the way. I trust that may be true, that Christ, your Son, turns fear to faith and dread to hope in you. A feeling comes inside me, a new sensation, yes, a warm and fiery feeling that words cannot express. I feel my Father loves me. I feel he heard my prayer. I do not know the answer yet, but know that he is there. He tells me I am worthy just because I'm here. I came to live a purpose in my part to make that clear. Tornadoes are like life. When chaos swirls around me and I am full of strife, it's hard to find the peaceful center within too busy a life. But Father in heaven knows the way. He says, be still and know that I am God. Just like his Son said to the waves, be still, and they obeyed. Christ is the door. Faith is the key. When life feels like a tornado, I'll center myself in Christ to find the peaceful center in me.
Oh, very nice. Very, very beautiful poem. Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to compliment you on your ability to reveal yourself. That's always hard for an author to do, and you've done it so easily and well, and it's wonderful. Also, I'd like to say that, you know, because you made it in the shape of a tornado, you're following in the footsteps of E.E. Cummings. And he wrote in a similar fashion sometimes. I remember one poem he had that was the shape of a typewriter. And he had one that's a bucking bronco. So you're not unusual in doing that. And it's always welcomed in poetry. Thank you so much, Debbie. Okay. Anybody else who's here who has a poem that they want to read but didn't sign up? Okay, Dietz, do you have a poem?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Actually, I have two of them.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that we were supposed to send in, but I want to say hi to Wisconsin because I, as most of you know, are on Lake Michigan. And I too spent 6 months here in Michigan and 6 months in Hemet. So my first poem is about Michigan basements. I know Californians don't really have basements, but most Michigan homes do. I have one in this house, but many years ago, a friend of my daughter's was moving, said she was going to move her bedroom down to the basement. And we all went, ooh, no, because basements can be spooky, spidery kind of places. So I thought I would write her friend a poem, and I framed it for her to keep in her basement. So it's called The Basement Boogeyman. You've no doubt heard of things that scare. They chill your bones and raise your hair. But the worst of these cannot compare to the tale of the basement boogeyman. Heedless of the strongest locks below the line of dirt and rocks, deep within those cement blocks lurks the soul of the basement boogeyman. Damp and cold are his domain. He ventures out at time of rain to inflict misery and pain. Oh, the dreaded basement boogeyman. Late at night, you'll feel a chill, a gentle breeze, but from no sill. The room grows quiet, stank, and still. It's the sign of the basement boogeyman. And when he finds you all alone, from your lips you'll hear a moan, and find your heart's been turned to stone from the touch of the basement boogeyman. So as you lay there scared to death and hear him moving still and still, close your eyes and hold your breath and wait for the basement boogeyman.
Whoa, that is chilly. I had that fear when I went into the basement. Oh, you've struck a chord. Wonderful poem.
I don't know how well she liked it, but I guess she kept her room down there. The other one is totally opposite, but this one I wrote, oh my gosh, 30 years ago. Our son was 15 years old and got a malignant brain tumor, and we had to take him to St. Jude's Hospital. And we were there the night waiting to get his prognosis the next day. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and went into the hotel room bathroom and closed the door and, because I couldn't sleep. And I wrote this poem. And because we're at St. Jude's in Memphis, I call it Song for St. Jude's. It doesn't matter if you're young or old, as we begin growing and our lives unfold. We reach toward our dreams and begin making plans, then discover the future is not in our hands. So many words have still been unsaid. So many books are waiting unread. So many mountains that I'd like to climb. So much to do in so little time. Just as he gives us our very first breath, somewhere in life, he also brings death.
How much time is there for our lives to grow? All wisdom and knowledge can't help us to know. Helpless and frightened as we find our way, make each moment special and count every day. Though life is precious, it's not ours to give. Be happy for each day he gives us to live. Will I see sunshine or shadows, have laughter or tears? Will I have many or just a few years? I can't help but wonder and want to ask why. Is it time to dance or my time to die? And I'm happy to say that he's 48 years old now, living
wonderful.
in Florida with a wonderful wife and 2 children. So yay.
That's wonderful. What a happy ending, and a very moving poem.
Thank you.
And the feelings of a mother. It's just beautiful poetry. Is there anyone else who brought a poem but hasn't signed up? If not, I'll read my 2 poems and then we'll call it a day.
Howard?
Pardon?
Jerry, are you trying to do something? Howard? I don't know if Jerry's trying to do something.
Oh, okay. Jerry?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Do you have something to read?
Yeah, I've been a member, but I owe my dues. So I have to know who I should send my dues to, since I'm
Jolynn.
doing this.
Jolynn. And only read half the poem now.
And only what?
Read half the poem. It's just a joke, because you're in arrears. I'm just making a joke. We'd love to hear your poem.
Okay. Let's see. Well, these are okay. I just moved my storage after years and years, and so this is a poem I found going through my stuff of boxes of writing stuff in particular. And so this is from July 2011, and this was just after I moved out of a job after 8 years and just kind of said I'm just going to write. So anyway, it's called What's Great. Okay. What's great? You know what's great? I'm straight, have 2 gay men as friends. For years now, I'm the richer for it. You know, they're just friends, like all friends. It can be done, you know. You know what's great? I'm 66, have a younger, sharper woman friend, straight like me. I read that book. No, it was black like me. Oh, well, she's black. The woman friend, we don't date, we hang. Nothing hanging in the balance, but one never knows. St. Exupéry's lost pilot, his princely friend in the desert. He said that one, not me. One never knows. Do what's in front of you. Mother Teresa said that, not me. You know what's great? I'm older. I have friends who are younger, teens, twittering teens. I don't have a smartphone, not smart enough yet, but we talk the same language. Wait for your pitch, the right pitch, I tell them. Ted Williams said that, not me. Warren Buffett quotes this quote too. He waits for his pitch, capital pitch. Let's see, turn the page here. Crusty papers from years like that. Okay, here we go. My teen friends tell me everything happens for a reason. Where'd they get that? Maybe heard it on Charlie Rose, staying up late, like I did, the Steve Allen show. You know what's great? I'm an adult, serious person. I have friends who are young children sitting in the driveway. We watch the world go by, laughing, people's dogs, owners looking like their dogs. At this park where I walk, I have friends who are dogs. It's Logan, Dixie, Catherine, Samantha, Stanley Kowalski, Golden Retriever, Border Collie, Dalmatian, Rottweiler, Dachshund. Don't know the owners' names. Don't really care to. Doggish snobbery. Poor owners, second-class citizens, their dogs so highly evolved. You know what's great? I have 2 friends who've been to prison, paid their debt, worked for a living, serious men, both. A common friend told me one still shoots heroin. Oh well, at least he's not shooting dogs or people or exotic animals. Not shooting dogs or people or exotic animals in Texas or South Africa. You know, it's great. I have friends who create for a living. Not an easy thing to do. Not an easy living. Artist types, they used to call them. Some still smoke dope. Not me. I can barely eat cookies. Sugar sends me. I know that song. You send me. Sam Cooke. I wonder if you bake cookies. List of best songs ever. Now on TV, everyone wants to sing and dance and act. Nothing wrong with that. None of them paint. Ah. Paint. Not till you're 66. Paint. You can't hate when you create. Except war. You can hate war. Can paint that. Soon we'll have painter TV contests and quiz shows. Winner gets a trip to Venice. Sorry, California, not Italy. No paint by numbers. Anyway, there you go.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a terrific poem. Don't hold back. And I also admire your honesty in, sharing yourself. That makes for great poetry. Thank you so much. And pay your dues. Okay. I would like to read a poem called Crumbs. And this is from my book of poetry. I don't know if you can see that. It's called How to Cook a Turkey and Other Poems. And there's the turkey. Well, that one I like to read around Thanksgiving. And this poem is illustrated. It has I don't know if you can see that well, a picture of a glass that's been drained. I was the one who drained the glass. And I took a picture of it. It was in a little restaurant in Lima, Peru, and I liked the way the tracks looked on the glass. And in our house for dinner, I'm usually the one who does the cooking, and I work at the counter between the stove and the corner, and sit on a stool. And once in a while, I look down, and when I cook, I make a mess. I have to admit it. And Esther is so wonderful, the lovely Esther. She kindly cleans up after me, but she likes my cooking, so that's something she does for me. But one day I'm looking at the stuff in the corners and what is dropped on the floor, and then I wrote this poem, Crumbs. Crumbs on the counter, on the floor, ever so slight, but in need of gathering, sweeping, picking. Specks of lint and coffee grounds, toast crumbs, banana strings, the glint of a piece of broken wine glass, a curl of dust hiding in the corner, more particles than one can identify, appearing continuously, waiting for removal, an endless river of crumbs running through every home, residue of the lives lived within, on course for recycling in the universe. And that's it. Thank you for your generous applause. Now I'd like to I'd like to end with the one I always like to end with, and I'm sure some of you have grown tired of it. But Jim, if you could unmute everyone, that would be great.
Everybody has to unmute themselves.
Okay, unmute yourselves. Unplug yourselves. Whatever you have to do. Okay, and this one, as you know, is called The Word is the Music. The music is the word. And this poem may be the only poem ever actually recited by a group. It was written to be a group poem. Everybody writes individual poems, but this is one that stands out. It's a group poem, and I have a picture that I illustrated next to the poem. I don't know if you can see that. Can anyone tell me what that is?
Looks like the inside of a pepper.
Yeah, exactly right. Somebody has looked at the inside of a pepper once too often.
Yes.
I gave it a little color. How great. Okay, this is one where I will say the line and you repeat the line. Okay, here we go. I can hear the beat.
I can hear the beat.
Boom chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom.
I can feel the beat.
I can feel the beat.
Boom chicka boom boom.
Boom chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom boom.
Boom chicka boom boom.
I am the beat.
I am the beat.
Boom chicka boom boom. Chicka chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom boom.
Boom chicka boom boom. Chicka chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom boom.
Boom, boom, boom.
I ate a chimichanga in Cucamonga.
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 Boom, boom, chicka chicka boom.
Boom, 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 chicka boom.
Boom, boom, chicka chicka boom.
Boom, boom, chicka boom.
Pick a peck of peppers, pick, pick.
Pick a peck of peppers, pick.
Pick a peck of peppers, pick, pick.
Pick a peck of peppers, pick.
Boom, boom, chicka chick chick.
Boom, boom, chicka chicka chick.
Boom, boom, chicka chick chick.
Boom, 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 chicka chicka chick.
Chop a chick chick, neck, neck.
Okay, that's the neck.
Chop a chick, neck.
Chop a chick chick, neck, neck.
Chop a chick, neck.
Pick a peck of peppers, peck, peck.
Pick a peck of peppers, peck.
Pick a peck of peppers, peck, peck.
Pick a peck of peppers, peck.
Boom chicka boom boom, chicka chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom boom, chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom boom, chicka chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom boom, chicka boom.
The word is the music. The music is the word.
The word is the music. The music is the word.
Listen, listen. Tell me what you heard.
Listen, listen. Tell me what you heard.
Boom chicka boom boom, chicka chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom boom, chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom boom, chicka chicka boom.
Boom chicka boom boom, chicka boom.
Great. You performed it so well and you've made me so happy. It's so stupid, but so great. Thank you.
It's an exercise, Howard, for our old brains. I'm telling you what.
Actually, it's one of those things where I appreciated the rhythm of poetry. And this was an homage to the rhythm of poetry.
Oh, there's the painting.
Okay.
And
Look behind you.
And it's the, oh, there's, she's showing you the poster. I blew it up into a poster. And when we got married, I had everybody at the wedding recite the poem with us. It was so great. And I don't know if you know, what's the artist teacher, honey? Lois Stipp. She made an engagement party for us, and I made everybody at the engagement party read the poem. How much fun that was. Over the years, any chance I get to have a group perform this poem, it's like a symphony to me. You know? And other poets, I'm sure, enjoy participating, maybe, but we'll see. Anyway, that's our 5th annual Poetry Bash.
Thank Howard, can I say thank you to everybody?
Yes, go ahead, Marcia. This is my sister, Marcia.
Oh, hi, Marcia.
Hi, thank you, everybody. I enjoyed each and every one, and so many I related to that I had to just stop and wipe my eyes. And oh, and don't let Howard fool you with the chicka chicka boom boom stuff. When we were kids and we'd take long drives somewhere, my dad used to sing Tumba, and we had to do the chorus, Tumba, 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 until my dad went off to do a solo. That's where Howard got it from.
Would you like to do Tumba?
Howard exposed.
I just want to express my sympathies to my wonderful, lovely Esther, sister-in-law.
Esther looks like Sally Field.
Anyway, thank you so much for attending, and it's always a pleasure. And you're all great poets, and it is true, poetry is perfect, and your sentiments and your ideas have been well received, and finally you get to share them with people who appreciate them out here in the world. And
Thank you,
keep on
Howard.
writing.
Great job, Howard. Great job, Howard.
Thank you, Howard, and everyone else. It
Yeah,
was
I
Okay.
would like to, in closing, I would like to say to Howard, thank you, Howard, once again. Great poetry session. We really enjoyed it. It was fun for all of us, I think. It was for me, certainly. And hopefully we'll see all of you next month in September. I forgot, I don't know what the exact date is, which it's the fourth Saturday in September, whatever it is. Hopefully we'll see you then. Until then, everybody, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Good to see you all.
Good to see you.